Yes, absolutely. And it may even be subliminally, I don't know, that Diane and other members of her party are having this fight with the Catholics and the Church of England because they know that there are many fights ahead with Islam, because we have all sorts of issues about what's going on in Muslim schools and what's going on in mosques, and there are going to be further problems there. And I wonder whether this is part...
We're not having a fight with them. They waited for the legislation to go through.
No, you are having a fight.
And then tried to cut a deal.
and regular viewers to this programme who've watched it for the last 4 years will say, good heavens, we've never heard that strident tone in Diane's voice before.
No, because you don't represent...
Today, she's really gone off the deep end for the first time.
You don't represent the type of constituency I do with so many different fundamentalist religious groups.
I'm going to give Paul the final word to you. Where do we go from here?
Well, I mean, I think it is very difficult. I think, first of all, there should be tolerance of different religions. You know, you shouldn't be expected to have pork fat on our cartridges, as they did in the time of the sepoys. Catholics don't have a tremendous respect for Parliament in the sense that it was Parliament who brought about the Reformation and said the king was the head of the church.
Wow, in that case.
I don't think Parliament is always right. As Thomas More said, you know, the king, but God first.
All right.
I think I agree slightly. It was going to be. There is trouble ahead.
All right, trouble ahead. Paul Piers-Reid, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Now, stay awake. No nodding off in the back pews there. We're dancing and clapping a smells bells sort of church here on this week. Not one of you sleepy C of E congregations. So coming up, Darryn Lyons, our paparazzi priest. He reckons the 1980s get a bad press and that we're a lot much greedier now. But first, as you know, we're never alarmists on this programme. We're just too cool for that, and lazy. But we're getting worried about lapses in security around the Palace of Varieties. First, Tony Blair mysteriously vanished from the Commons yesterday afternoon. Cynics on other programmes blamed the debate on Iraq for his disappearance. But even we don't think he'd take the country to war, then refuse to debate it. Next, we woke up this morning to find the Sun newspaper had launched a nationwide hunt for John Reid's brain. Surely not. At least not on the day when the Home Office was trying to tell us that crime was falling. And surely nobody could be so desperate that they would steal the Home Secretary's grey matter. Tonight we bring you some good news. 1 out of 2 of the missing articles has been found. We're just not telling you which one. Yep, been another funny old week in British politics here. Could it be the winter blues? Peter Oborne has the answer.
If you've been feeling down, don't despair. Psychologists say that this is the gloomiest week in the entire year. Perhaps that's why the government has been suffering from what looks very like seasonal affective disorder. There's a vacuum at the centre of power. The Prime Minister can't make up his mind what to do with the Home Office. He was absent from the critical debate on Iraq, and 2 senior Downing Street aides have been questioned by the police. Tony Blair himself is just 1 arrest away from a premature departure from office. Problem number 1, the crisis at the Home Office. John Reid's first solution was to blame his officials. His second wheeze was to split the department in 2. But Downing Street seemed oddly uncertain whether it backed the idea or not. Obvious sign of a collapse in central direction and authority.
The latest crisis in the Home Office is that the Home Secretary is writing to courts up and down the country, pleading with them not to send convicted criminals to prison. Will the Prime Minister give a guarantee that he will not deal with this failure in prison planning by introducing yet another scheme to release criminals early?
First of all, I must correct him on what the Home Secretary has said. He is simply reminding the courts of existing sentencing policy set out in the legislation. Oh, yes.
Let's be absolutely clear. The Prime Minister's answer gives no guarantee. So another early release scheme may well be on its way and dangerous criminals released on our streets. Is it the government's policy to split the Home Office into 2 entirely separate departments?
The issue about the future structure in the Home Office arises, as he knows, from the review announced by the Home Secretary last October, which is to do with the issue of terrorism and security.
Can the Prime Minister tell us whether the Chancellor of the Exchequer agrees with splitting the Home Office in two?
The review that was announced last October is about the structures of the Home Office to do with security and terrorism.
I think the Prime Minister will find that the Chancellor doesn't want to break up the Home Office, he just wants to break up the Home Secretary. The Prime Minister's not going to be here for very long. There is no point even considering this proposal unless the Chancellor's agreed it.
David Cameron is quite right. The Prime Minister has become, sadly, irrelevant. In fact, we've got what amounts to a unique constitutional arrangement, and one that will intrigue future historians. We have one Prime Minister who's in office but not in power, that's Blair. We have another Prime Minister who's in power but not in office, that's Brown. As one Brown confidant told me this week, the Chancellor of the Exchequer is in transition. And that means that ministers, if they want a decision, go to Brown and not to Blair.
Well, you know the hoochie coochie man. Everybody knows him.
With the government in such disarray, it should be pretty easy to make an impact as an opposition leader. But David Cameron has very little to say on the Home Office debate. Min Campbell, by contrast, put in a commanding performance as he rightly, in my view, rebuked the Prime Minister for a shameful failure to put in an appearance at the Iraq debate.
Later today, in the debate on Iraq, we will be setting out our proposals to bring the troops home by October. Should not the Prime Minister be setting out his proposals in that debate as well?
For us to set an arbitrary timetable, and that is what it is, it's arbitrary, it's not attached to the conditions in Iraq, it's simply saying that we will pull British troops out in October, come what may. That would send the most disastrous signal to the people that we are fighting in Iraq. It is a policy that, whatever its superficial attractions may be, is actually deeply irresponsible, which is probably why it's the Liberal Democrat policy.
Well, if he feels that strongly, he should come and debate these issues. What can possibly be more important than that the Prime Minister should be here to debate the issue of Iraq at a time when British forces are at risk every day in respect of their lives? Isn't that the kind of leadership we're entitled to?
Apparently not. It was that old trooper Margaret Beckett who ducked the bullets on behalf of the government.
The Prime Minister has given a very clear and simple commitment that there is a clear, we hope, potential turning point in Iraq, hopefully in the not-too-distant future as Operation Sinbad comes to a close, and that at that point he will certainly come to the House.
Where would this House have been in the Second World War if Winston Churchill had only come along when a turning point was in prospect or had been reached? It is sad that he prefers the mentality of the bunker to the open thinking of debate.
I say again, no one can accuse the United Kingdom of cutting and running after 4 years, in which we have tried to the best of our ability to fulfil the objectives of the United Nations resolution.
I believe our government has to stay in Iraq for as long as necessary to help with the assistance and the stabilisation. I think those who call for timetabled withdrawals, instant withdrawals, are taking a huge risk about what the consequences of that might be.
We've installed a gang of warlords in power in Baghdad, the heads of competing militias, some of them at war with our own soldiers in the south of Iraq. It's not a government, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's Martin Scorsese's gangs of New York that we've put in charge in Baghdad.
And yet Tony Blair still looks oddly cheerful, despite the Home Office disaster, despite the Iraq calamity, and despite the mounting horror of Gordon Brown. But this week's news that two aides have been questioned in the Cash for Peerages investigation has suddenly opened the possibility that Tony Blair may be driven from office by scandal. And even he will feel very gloomy about that.
Peter Oborne in the Ain't Nothing But Blues Bar in London's Soho. Diane, how damaging is the issuing of these guidelines by John Reid that our prisons are full, so try not to send too many people to prison? In light of today, a judge not sending a convicted paedophile to prison because he didn't think there was any room for him.
It's not good, particularly
understatement from Diane.
Particularly coming, you know, on top of all John Reid's rhetoric about 100 days to sort it out and all the rest of it. And, you know, he should have said less at the beginning and tried to deal with some of the underlying issues. And although I'm generally a person that thinks actually as a country we put too many people in prison, actually one group of people I think should be inside are paedophiles that download child porn.
And presumably, we know that relations between Labour Home Secretaries and judges are never that great. Presumably what the judge did today is going to be repeated by another number of other judges in the weeks to come.
It really looked as if it was a calculated retaliation by a judge today. That's the way I read it.
So quickly, too.
He said, you know, I could have put this man in jail, but I had to be aware of what the Home Secretary's written to me about, so I'm letting this fellow go. And then, sure enough, the man is there ready to be interviewed, with even the paedophile saying, what a lucky fellow I am, and it's not the judge's fault. And there is, by the way, I mean, there is really a feeding frenzy against John Reid at the moment. I mean, you mentioned this morning's Sun. There is a kind of glee as the pack is setting on him. Now, why is this? It's because he set himself up for a fall. He went into the Home Office. He bad-mouthed all his predecessors. He said the place was an absolute shambles, not fit for purpose.
You said it would come back to haunt him, Diane.
And now people are enjoying
seeing him
pretty hard.
And it ain't going to do his leadership chances any good, is it?
Tragically, I think John Reid's leadership chances look ever more remote.
Should we be building more prisons or using prisons less?
I would guess a bit of both, but where David Cameron didn't pin down Blair, it seemed to me at Question Time the other day, was Blair answered one of the questions, says, you know, I passed the 2003 Act, I extended these sentences, I'm putting these people away for longer, and surely then Cameron should have been straight in there saying, well, you know, why on earth didn't you follow up all these policies by building more prison places?
Because Gordon Brown wouldn't give him the money, is how I understand it. Now, will Gordon Brown, would he split the Home Office? What's the answer to David Cameron's question?
I actually don't know what Gordon Brown's doing.
We've no indication, have we? He's kept him on this.
No, there's no.
But this is a complete red herring. I mean, we shouldn't even debate it. The only reason splitting the Home Office was brought up was that John Reid thought that he could divert attention from his manifest failures. Whether you split the Home Office or double the size of the Home Office won't make a ha'porth of difference.
But the Prime Minister came close to doing it in 2001. After the election, the day after, there was a big discussion. Peter Mandelson urging him to do it. He wanted to do it. Other modernisers said, yeah. In the end, the civil service talked him out. He's regretted it ever since.
But I promise
on the cards.
I promise you that that's not the solution to the problem.
It's not the solution. Shuffling nameplates around doesn't alter anything.
All right, Iraq. How damaging, Michael, is the fact that Mr. Blair wasn't at that debate this afternoon? Is that just a Westminster thing, here today, gone tomorrow, or has it left a bad taste?
I guess it would ripple much further than that. I mean, just to remind you, more than 100 British soldiers have died in Iraq. Last year, 34,500 Iraqi civilians died in Iraq, and I don't know how many in the years before that. We didn't even count them. And for the Prime Minister, by the way, there has been no debate on Iraq in the House of Commons since the thing began, since we went to war.
The big debate to go to war.
Since the big debate to go to war, and the Prime Minister doesn't go to the House of Commons to make his case. And it's not as though the Prime Minister wouldn't have done pretty well. I mean, the Prime Minister normally makes a pretty good speech. He's robust. He
takes them on.
He's normally courageous, and he does better than people think. So I can't understand his decision at all. But I think it will have gone way outside the Westminster Village.
And Bing Campbell finally comes into his own?
Yes. I mean, he's the Lib Dems are very sound on this, really. I mean, I actually think the Prime Minister not turning up was more of a Westminster issue. What I think is damaging is the news in the last 48 hours that the Senate committee has voted down George Bush's surge. I mean,
Sure, though it's not binding, as you know.
No, it's not binding, but it's a sign. I mean, if George Bush can't even persuade Congress about his plans, Blair looks very isolated.
And just very briefly on Iraq, Margaret Beckett, they're looking very unconvincing about, we're ready now to withdraw, it'll happen quite soon, at a time when there's a huge surge in Baghdad, which is like to have an incredible Shiite overspill into Basra. How can we do it?
Well, I don't know what you mean. I'm sure they're going to withdraw the troops. The bit she's unconvincing about is whether there's going to be a justification for doing it. I mean, she's hoping that things are going to look good enough to say, oh, there we are, we handed over to the Iraqis and it's all gone well. That bit is what looks unconvincing.
All right. Diane, we had this leading the ITV News tonight on the Cash for Honours story about this kind of second system of emails in Downing Street that apparently the police hadn't seen. A lot of them have been deleted. It's leading at least the Telegraph and the Mail tomorrow, maybe other papers as well. Is this a turning point?
Number 10 have issued denials. I saw
They have
that.
indeed.
I went online and saw that.